I think it's a sorry state of affairs when the nation's most prestigious public broadcaster becomes a byword for institutional cowardice. The BBC, long lauded as the gold standard in journalism, is now drawing headlines not for its content, but for its apparent inability to stand by its principles, or more damningly, to apply them in the first place. In my own experience, I've seen it stealing other people's stories without attribution, and now the case of David Collier, a journalist targeted, harassed, and effectively abandoned after uncovering a serious editorial lapse in a BBC documentary in Gaza, is emblematic of a broader malaise, an institution that shirks responsibility while scapegoating those who expose its flaws. Collier, an anti-Semitism researcher and prominent commentator on the Israel-Hamas conflict, unearthed the fact that a teenage narrator of the BBC's documentary Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone, was the son of a Hamas official. This is no trivial discovery. Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organisation under UK law, and the BBC has strict rules about transparency, particularly when working with individuals linked to entities of such grave designation. The failure to disclose this family connection to viewers was not just a journalistic oversight, it was a breach of duty. And it was casual and lazy journalism. Following Collier's revelation, the BBC quietly removed the documentary from iPlayer and added a vague caption admitting the narrator's father was a senior figure in Gaza in the Hamas-run government. The broadcaster then launched an internal investigation, not into the editorial process, but seemingly into who might be sacrificed to deflect the backlash. Anonymous producers are now under scrutiny. Disciplinary procedures are being whispered about. Staff may be fired. Yet the issue is systemic. The BBC outsourced this documentary to an external production house. Editorial control, we are told, remained with the BBC. Generally, if the BBC does this, an external house makes the documentary, and at the last 2 or 3 days, the BBC comes in and approves and disapproves and modifies. So, clearly, compliance checks were superficial or simply theatrical. Instead of addressing the institutional failings that allowed this to slip through, the BBC appears more invested in reputational firefighting, wielding its sword against staff or journalists who cause discomfort, rather than those who cause error. And what of David Collier? For his pains, unpaid, unsolicited, uncommissioned, he now receives daily death threats. His car has been vandalised with paint stripper while he was abroad. His family lives in fear. The police have classified this as a racially aggravated hate crime, yet the case has been shelved for lack of evidence. The BBC, meanwhile, has offered no public support. It is as though revealing an inconvenient truth is itself a form of offence. This is more than cowardice, it's complicity in a climate of fear where journalists who uncover uncomfortable facts, particularly facts concerning anti-Semitism or extremist affiliation, are hung out to dry, their safety disregarded in the name of editorial neutrality or institutional damage control. And this is not an isolated episode. We're living in an age where journalists are attacked from both ends, vilified by populists for exposing abuse and punished by liberal institutions for spoiling a curated narrative. The BBC, supposedly above such pettiness, now risks becoming the very thing that it once exposed. Its fealty to balance too often leads to false equivalence. Its fear of controversy too often results in obfuscation. And the cost of that evasion is borne not by the BBC itself, but by the individuals it ought to protect: the whistleblowers, the freelancers, the bloggers, the researchers. And what's required is institutional bravery, not just accountability for procedural lapses, but a whole-scale reckoning with the culture that fosters them. Transparency must begin not with scapegoats, but with the senior editorial gatekeepers who allowed this to happen. Moreover, the BBC must do more than apologise after the fact or shove this into the long grass. It must support those who act in the public interest, even if they operate outside its walls. This is not about left or right, about Gaza or Israel. It's about journalistic integrity. And it's about the moral rot that sets in when institutions seek to protect themselves rather than to protect the truth. And until the BBC acknowledges that it will not merely be failing journalism. It will be actively betraying journalism and betraying the truth. And that is sad from a national broadcaster that I've worked for and I greatly respect. But the last few months I've raised an eyebrow, and I am disturbed by the direction in which the BBC is currently heading. It's not heading in the right direction, and it's squandering the trust that we who pay the licence fee have placed in it.